Hello, everyone, and welcome back to This Week in Guns, brought to you by Patriot Patch Company, VZ Grips, MAF Corporation, and Primary Arms. This show offers information and commentary on the latest firearms industry information news, buzz information, and news buzz. I'm your host, Matthew LaRosier, and I'm joined by some illustrious co-hosts. I have with me today the Rat Doctor once again, plus his anesthesiologist, Mr. Othias.
Hello, my name's Buzz Newsington.
And I'm the driver of the Ratmobile.
Yes, the Ratmobile is. So you're joining us from mobile today.
Yeah, it's mobile. I'm racing around with my rocket car as a Ratmobile.
I have to say that's pretty big. I'm a little impressed.
Internal combustion is for the birds. This is external combustion, boys.
and you can run it on almost anything, right? Including like cognac and stuff.
Yeah,
like
that's true. And the blood of my enemies. My enemies are gas stations.
Yeah, that's so progressive of you.
I'm setting them on fire one by one to stop climate change.
Well, I'm sure this is going to open the show up to a whole new audience.
Oh man,
thank you so much. Oh yeah, and I'm wearing a Walther shirt. Who still don't sponsor me? And I was boo.
Yeah, even Steven Crowder can get Walther. What the hell?
Jeez, even Steven Crowder.
Have you tried? Have you considered wearing a dress?
You know,
supposedly that helps.
I looked at my comments on the PDP review video, the PDPF video I did, and I got some really interesting comments about because I mean, Ivan, you shot that gun, right? We all thought it was great.
It's not the best just because the grip is a little too slim for me,
right.
But like the idea that it's like a female only gun is absolutely stupid.
Right, absolutely. So I thought I was actually really even-handed in that video, and I got all these comments saying, "Oh, that Walther dick-sucking check must have finally come through in the mail."
It's because you made a joke about Glocks, and that's
because
an
you listed
unforgivable
all the
sin.
Walters. You know, like 3 Walters.
Okay, well, whatever. But so there's a reason that I waited until we could have Othias and Ivan here to talk about this next story.
Oh God, are we doing this thing?
It's about rats and old guns. Wait!
I found a bunch of patents for those weird mouse traps.
Is this a story that I think it's going to be?
Yes, it is all about Mr. Alec Baldwin.
Okay, so it's not the rats and old gun story.
No, it's a different one. That's for later. So all of us kind of all of the gun or even law tubers were saying, Alec Baldwin, he's a criminal, he's a murderer, right?
That's true.
Me and Othias and
oh my God, Matt and I have gotten so many fights with notable people over this whole freaking issue.
Yeah.
And now that he's being, by the way, the news, so that we don't bury this, the news is that they are going to be charging him,
right,
and they're going to be charging the armorer, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Both for involuntary manslaughter, I believe.
Yes.
Maximum penalty 18 months in jail plus fees, fines, something like that.
Yeah, and I think the thing that I had read had said they're both being charged in an individual capacity and not for their specific roles on the movie set. So they're,
which is how criminal law works.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But we've said from the beginning that this issue has come down to essentially, for Alec Baldwin specifically, 2 layers of negligence, because everybody likes to fixate on the fact that he was the man behind the gun, right? That's the thing that people really love to talk about. But there's also this thing of him being in charge of the production overall, right, him being the person that hired the armorer. So there's some liability there, right? And then the problem is we keep getting drawn in the same argument over and over again, and poor Matt and I are like, we're almost tired of it, because everybody wants to fixate on this thing that, like, Alec Baldwin should be a firearms expert and should know the difference between a real and fake cartridge. He should have known not to pull the trigger. He should have known, no, right? And that is all 100% true of your average person out on the range responsible for their own actions. And it's always true, and we don't disagree with that.
Right.
The problem is, and we've said this repeatedly, under the law, when you're on a movie set and there's somebody that's supposed to be a qualified expert that is supposed to tell you whether or not something is safe, that person's job is to make sure it's safe. Okay.
Right.
And the minute I say this, everybody's going to say, oh, now you're letting Alec Baldwin. No, because there's essentially two questions that have yet to be answered anywhere in any of this documentation. And every time I say these two questions, everybody says, no, I read it here, I read it there. That's fine. But we need affidavits, we need proofs, we need paper trails, right?
Yeah. Not an op-ed.
Right. The two big questions, the two big ones that everybody wants to know about this that are actually thinking about it clearly are, who gave Baldwin the gun and what did they say when they gave it to him? That's actually one hyphenated question, I guess. So like, at what moment, what happened when the gun was handed to Baldwin? Who handed it? What did they say? Right? That matters a lot. If the armorer directly handed it to him and said, this gun is 100% safe to point at people, right? Because that's supposed to be the qualified expert.
Right.
If they just grabbed it without addressing the armorer at all, now we got, So, and I know that's been reported both ways, by the way, practically. Like if you will find a source that says one way or the other. The other question is, how did live ammo get onto that set at all? Like, who brought live ammo into the set? Those are really like the biggest two things that everybody really wants to know. Right. It's the least two things that are talked about. Everybody talks about him, whether he had his finger on the trigger. Everybody talks about whether or not the gun can do that, whether or not... The problem is, the negligence happened when live ammo was introduced, and the negligence might have happened when the gun was handed over to Baldwin. And I know people want to fixate on the negligence of him pulling the trigger. Unfortunately, if you want to run a safe movie set, I still say to this day that you're not going to trust the talent, no matter how educated they are on firearms. That's not their job. They don't pay attention to that. You know what I mean? Yeah. And this is coming from someone that makes ammo to shoot all the time and makes dummy ammo to use all the time. There's a person that's in charge of that, even in a small deal like we are. You know what I mean? There's a person. By the way, we don't even point anything at anybody. I would say ideally you wouldn't point at anybody ever, but apparently they needed to for some scene. Or I don't know why you can't use
well, whether they needed to or not, right?
But that's not where the legal, you know what I mean? Like if you're going to put it on Baldwin, they point at somebody, you can also put it on the other person for being behind the camera instead of just using a camera remotely like you can do.
Well, like there's all sorts of... It's we don't know. And we still don't know, even after all of this stuff has come out with the decision to charge. And so to put it shortly, the debate that you and I kept finding ourselves in, because we didn't want to go out and defend Alec Baldwin. The thing was,
that's the worst part. It's like, why are you letting Baldwin? I'm like, we don't know. That's all we're saying.
Yeah. And so the thing, everybody wanted to have this magic bullet where they knew, they were like, oh, well, he should have checked the ammo. And I think our main point was, no, Monkey does not check ammo. Monkey does as told.
Also, I'm sorry, but trying to read about this stuff, it is brutal how little people understand about this ammunition. Everywhere I see the terms bullet, case, cartridge, round. It's all interchangeable. Nobody knows what they're reporting on it, and people are believing it. But the report itself that you are reading does not seem to understand how ammo is constructed. Yep. People don't understand that you would have a dummy round that would have a live primer. You would have a dummy round that had a fake primer. You could have a dummy round that had no primer. Right. Then people are saying that dummy rounds are supposed to have holes drilled in the side unless they're being used for some. The whole point is, depending on what attributes of the cartridge you need to represent in a scene, you can have either a really obviously fake round that is bright pink, right, or you can have a round that is so real it is indiscernible from another cartridge. At which point, everybody does this, and this happened to Matt and I both. Everybody starts shaking the cartridges at us. This is the thing that drives me crazy. They're shaking, like people are like, no,
there's a bean in it.
They put a bean in it. Then you know it's fake. And I'm going, have you ever had a 45 long Colt cartridge in your hand loaded with smokeless powder? Because with smokeless powder, you shake it and it shakes. Like I wouldn't say it's a rattle like a bean, but it doesn't matter. You're talking about trusting Alec Baldwin to decide whether or not what he's hearing is sand or a bean. Right. Well, and that's what we're going to base our safety on. Stop waving that stupid thing on my face. Don't let the talent. Well,
the other thing is, I'm sure you guys have read the SAMI standards for movie prop ammunition, right?
Yeah, the very detailed standards of how to make a round that's not real.
Yeah, it doesn't exist.
Right.
That's the thing that we have to stress here. That there is not 4 categories of dummy ammunition. No, dummy ammunition is almost always made for the production. I mean, there's the stuff you can buy, right? And even when you buy it, some of it's 3D printed, some of it has the hole drill on the side, some of it just doesn't have a primer. There is no standard. It's ludicrous. So go on.
Even the stuff with the beans, one person that I'd talked with about this, who claimed to have some knowledge of firearms on movie sets. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't. Pointed out that you don't want stuff with the beans if the actor is going to be shaking the gun around, as Alec was in the scene where he ended up shooting somebody. Like, he draws the gun from the holster and points it at the camera. I mean, maybe you could do your audio trickery and post and take that out, but he's going to draw the gun and it's going to go rattle, 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 and that's not going to sound right.
Right.
With your little metallic beans rattling around inside of your case. So that virtually indistinguishable ammunition may have been the right call here. Of course, I guess you wouldn't have seen the primers, but yeah.
What is unusual in this situation, if we're going to do the speculation game, is that the scene supposedly caused for him to draw from concealment, point, and fire. Right.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
In that situation, there's probably no need for the rear end of the cartridge to look realistic, and they probably could have been primerless cartridges.
Yep.
But we don't know. That's the thing, is that's when you are all welcome to speculate, like I just did. It's very entertaining to speculate that way and to sort of go, what the heck was going on? But a lot.
Well, let's not bury that lead, though. Let's not bury that lead.
Oh, okay.
Even if so, granted, the back of the cartridge did not need to be visible. There's an issue there. Is what implication is buried there? Is it now okay for the actor, who is again a chimp,
right,
to open the loading gate and rotate the cylinder to check the? No, don't mess. You do not want your actor messing with it at all.
Right.
It's worse than that. Being a Colt Single Action Army, I have to consistently tell people dealing with any revolver before the automatic rebounding hammer, you must cock the hammer back one notch before you even roll the cylinder. I see guys dragging live cartridges across firing pins all the time.
Right.
Because they don't understand mechanically there's 2 notches in that gun. And you have to hit one of them. You know what I mean? They'll hammer all the way down, start rotating that thing, and tear up firing pins, drag on primers. It's frankly dangerous. But this is, again, why we don't let the actor do it. There's supposed to be a guy who knows that gun inside and out, or girl. And this is the guy. There's been separate articles about a look at the type of gun used in the Rust movie set shooting. And we've got a Turbo Deluxe boomer who oh wow, okay, like brass lower frame and everything.
Yeah, look at this guy with his entire office is made of pegboard. This is the guy you go to talk to about a Single Action Army reproduction.
Well, to be fair, we actually know a lot about the gun now. Matt and I originally were like, people there's no way a Single Action Army can fire if you don't pull the trigger. I'm like, there's a lot of ways they can if they're damaged. So thankfully, there's been, what was it, the local police or the FBI? I can't remember now. It was they did a very lovely report. They identified the gun, they identified how it was configured, and they ran a series of tests, including ultimately breaking the hammer in their testing to see how much it would take. So the gun was not broken, which we learned later.
Right.
But we got yelled at for speculating that it could be broken and that might happen.
Well, Bill, and the only reason we said that was because Brandon Herrera was sitting there with his different reproduction saying this could not have happened.
Yeah, very recently we did an episode of a percussion gun that was so bad of a fake that you could pull the trigger in the half cock and it would drop the hammer.
All right.
So, by the way, that's not what happened. We have a report. I'm not trying to say that is what happened. I'm just saying that when you don't know, you don't know. All things are possible until you know. So you just have to wait for evidence to come up. And the problem is the reporting on this is so bad because mechanically it involves a firearm most people are not familiar with, and then people are really terrible at understanding cartridges.
Well, at least The Edge actually does come in and say it's not easy to check the ammunition in this. He says,
"Yeah, but look at how they word it though. It's not easy to check this gun for blanks."
Right. Yeah, well, that's
extremely easy to check it for blanks. It's not easy to check it for a dummy. Right. And I'm seeing that too. I'm seeing the words blank and dummy used interchangeably. I'm seeing bullet and cartridge used interchangeably.
Yeah,
it's very bad reporting, and I don't know how far down you have to go to get somebody to actually know what they're talking about.
Well, Mr. Thiedge here, who's the expert in Pieta Single Action Army reproductions, he says it was a big advancement over the past firearms, which are percussion firearms. They use this more than any other firearm for Western movies. There's a Single Action Army perfect. And he also says some, what is it? He had a good quote, "It's a very powerful handgun. 45 Colt is a powerful round." Oh, yeah. And he explained how to load the gun. You go to half cock right here, open your gate, turn your firearm up. You got to crank the volume. This right here is the eject. That's so funny.
Yeah. I'm looking at other reporting of this. Have you seen the other notes about what's being claimed in terms of materially what's going on with the cartridges? Because, and it's worded terribly because the article I'm seeing says,
because it has to be accusatory.
Yeah. Well, no. Listen to how this starts. All of the real bullets were embossed with the Starline brass logo, a company that supplies materials for homemade bullets.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
No, I like to buy my microstamp Starline bullets.
And then they proceed to say things that don't necessarily imply what they mean, but reading this with an interpreter's mindset, it appears that they are claiming that several live rounds were found, as in cartridges with powder, primer, and ball, right?
Yep.
Were found. They said 2 loose rounds were collected from the top of a prop cart. A third was in a bandolier worn by one of the performers. I assume a live one mixed in with dummies on the bandolier. It doesn't clarify.
Yeah, we don't know.
And a fourth was found in a brown holster. The fifth, and this is where I had to retroactively realize all these were live rounds, because only when they mention the fifth, they say that it was live. The fifth live round was found in a box of dummy ammunition.
That's so powerful.
Okay, well, that kind of is suggestive, right?
There's 2 loose rounds together on a prop cart, and then 3 rounds randomly in different places, probably with mixtures of fake rounds. That is...
Did they ever say what was in the rest of the cylinder?
No. See, that's the thing is...
I'm sure that'll come out,
you just don't know. It'd be very interesting to find out if all 6 were live. It was a fully live cylinder, or was this dummy ammo that had been contaminated away from the set? It's very confusing.
Yeah, the fact that you have the fifth round there that they detailed was in a box of dummy rounds really makes you want to assume. And of course, assuming is only as good as far as you can throw it. But if you've got a box of dummy ammo you're loading from, and somebody just accidentally mixed the spicy ones in there, it's not hard to imagine how this happens. But that again gets us back to, why would this be negligent homicide? Right. You hand the monkey the gun. It's like having an actor get on a dirt bike that the mechanic swears they took the chain off of, and they're going to rev it up for a chase scene. They just need to see how it would look. Only you get on it and you rev it up and you run somebody down. Right. The actor's job isn't to inspect the motorcycle bike to see that, is this a real chain or whatever. They're just going to get on the bike and rev it up. The same way with the gun. You hand them the gun and you say, point this and maybe pull the trigger, and they're like, okay. Right. It's not his job to make sure it's safe. It's a good equipment as it sounds.
It's a good equivalent. You don't have stunt drivers going out and checking all the calipers on the car before they even, it's just, I understand ammunition's right there and it's more convenient to check, but the actor shouldn't be the one to have to differentiate between live and fake ammunition. Like that should really be.
I will say, I still don't see a way realistically that Alec Baldwin is guilty. Unless this was unless it was such a wild chain of events that is unimaginable. But I mean, everything's imaginable with actors, right?
For involuntary manslaughter, I would find it completely viable. Like if he was to my mind, and
he went and got it himself.
If he got it himself, that's the number one best way for him to get in trouble. If he just went, screw it, I'm just going to pick up the gun, I'm not going to ask who I'm supposed to ask, walks back to the set, and they say, hey, the armorer give you that? And he said, yeah, the armorer gave it to me. And he hadn't given it to him. Yep. That would be like the double plus best way.
It would be triple.
The secondary way, though, that I see is if a non-armorer gave it to him and said
it's his job to trust the one person, not anyone.
Well, not even that necessarily, because what if the person that gave him said, armorer says this is clear, right? That's a little tricky. But if someone said, I don't know where the armorer went, here's the gun. Like if somebody said this was not checked by the armorer, here you go. That also
I found this.
Point this at somebody. I don't know if it's
right. Exactly.
At that point, not to trust. You should know not to trust.
And I know people are going to be like, he pulled the trigger. And I was like, I'm perfectly fine with getting him in trouble for not having the gun properly checked by the armor. I don't need him to pull the trigger. Like I need that. The neglect is already there.
Yeah.
None of this is answered. Like no.
What I really do feel like. So my just gut instinct here My gut instinct is that he probably got it from the armor. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's what my gut says. And that they were probably like, yeah, it's good to go or whatever. But now looking at that, and especially with the reporting of ammunition, if the armorer prepared the blanks and put them in the box,
and there's live ammo mixed in there.
With ammo mixed in there, I think that's totally negligent.
Yeah,
like, super negligent.
As the reporting stands, which is very schizophrenic.
Right.
Subject to change, everyone. As the reporting stands, if we believe that there are 5 random live rounds mixed in with a bunch of fake ammunition, that is not looking good for the armorer. Not for Alec Baldwin. It's looking bad for the armor. Alec Baldwin's probably not finding a way to sneak live rounds into fake ammo. I mean, maybe. Or maybe
it could have been a saboteur.
There could have been an insane saboteur at that.
Which was remember when Alec was originally saying that? They were like,
it was sabotage.
Yeah. But I mean, I don't know. And the problem is people are going to say, well, so-and-so said this. Actually, they won't even say that. They'll say, well, this happened. And you go, who said that happened? Was there a recording of that happening? Yeah. Because right now, I don't think there's a recording of the moments leading up to it. And so therefore we have to go off a bunch of testimonials. And I haven't seen one.
Yeah, the camera got a little shot.
Yeah, I haven't seen one signed testimony. Yeah. So I don't know.
And I guess this is what we have trials for, I suppose, and why at the end of the day, it's probably good that he gets charged with involuntary manslaughter, because if he beats the rap, then we can pretty safely say the facts were in his favor. But then if he like randomly picked up the gun on the way to the set and was like, yeah, whatever, it's probably empty, then he should face consequences for that, because that's not a smart thing to do. Because if Monkey goes and gets his own banana, that's a problem.
By the way, he's contradicted himself already. He's run his mouth too much.
Yes,
absolutely. Mm-hmm. Am I saying that Alec Baldwin is the purveyor of truth in all things on this? Hell no.
Nope. But nor is he a good guy, or is he smart? But
yeah, but you can you could have a schizophrenic behind the wheel, and the car could still have a brake failure. You know what I mean? It's one of those things like, what actually happened here? Because this guy's insane, and that makes me nervous. But also some other stuff's going on. Like, why is this brake line cut?
Yeah, I get it. Oh man! All right. Well, we've spent a good solid 20 minutes talking about Mr. Alex Baldwin.
People like to talk about him. It's an interesting case.
Yeah, the Alex Baldwin case is a good one.
Well, he's a big man, and now he's in trouble, and that makes the little people happy.
Yeah. I just wish that okay, I'm not gonna. All right, we'll see what happens, boys.
I wish people were more comfortable with gray area, because it's literally all we've been advocating is like, guys, there's a lot of gray area. Please be willing to hear.
We're just like, hey, maybe it's nuanced. And
no, he did Trump on SNL. He's bad guy.
No,
maybe the first thing that gets said out loud wasn't what happened.
Right. All right. Well, next up, we've got a very, very interesting story, guys. So a lot of gun guys have probably been to the NRA Firearms Museum. And it, on its own, not saying anything else about the rest of that flaming dumpster, but anyway,
it was full of
museum
cool
is amazing.
Guns. Yeah, there were so many cool guns,
gorgeous guns in a beautiful display, and more stuff in the back, right? Than you really could know what's going on with.
They cycle them out.
Yeah, they cycle them out so that you can go see very slick guns. A lot of trusts will by default donate firearms to this museum. There are tons of firearms that are donated to this museum for the purpose of the public getting to look at them. And since 1989, it was the policy that the museum could only deaccession or get rid of guns for the purposes of
it's two things. This is what's claimed, by the way. I'm not an expert on this. We're reading off the same news articles, essentially. Right. But the assertion is that there are two key rules around the museum that have recently changed. One of those rules is that they had a board that made decisions on what should be deaccessioned or not. And there are reasons for a museum to sell a piece. They have duplicates. It doesn't fit their mission as well as another piece that they could buy with the money, So there's a board in charge of whether or not you could sell things. And then when you sold them, the monies from those sales had to go back into the museum. Those were the two rules that were very recently changed.
Yeah. And they were changed to being removed, which was I, Wayne LaPierre, if I want, can sell any gun and the money can go wherever I want. And so there's this news article we've got. Let me pull it up here. It's showing the resolutions, right? The May 1989 resolution is hereby rescinded. The executive vice president is directed to continue or establish procedures, blah, blah, blah. Basically, this puts a lot into his own control. And it's been written about before during COVID that the museum was being effectively looted.
So there's been accusations, and as far as I know, there's been no official response to this. And actually, we can't finish talking about this today because I believe Matt is actually scheduled to talk to some of the people that are making the accusations.
Yes. So we are both acutely interested in this. I mean, Matthias is an arms historian, and I am a legal person who sometimes likes to cosplay as an arms historian. so
the point being, this is breaking.
Yes.
We are reporting that it is breaking. We don't actually know what's going on. We're not.
But we do have two inside sources that we're going to be speaking more with.
Right. And it's just to find out. So it's making the news. I'm sure it's my fear is before like so many other things. My fear is that before we can ask anybody any appropriate questions on this as it's breaking out in the public, it'll get run away with and everybody's going to go nuts. Right.
Right.
The question is, okay, hold on. We've heard the accusations. We would like to hear, number one, we'd like to do some double checking to see if that's all true.
Right.
And number two, we'd like to hear the defense. So that's where we're at. But you are probably going to hear a news article that the NRA has been taking things from its museum during a shutdown in COVID and then liquidating them in order to use that currency elsewhere in the organization. And given the fact that they are currently embattled in court, that would fit with someone sort of pillaging their own museum arm in order to support their legal wing.
And certainly there is a lot of cash in there in guns.
A lot.
Yeah.
Right.
Like some of the most special firearms that I've ever seen in my life, I saw there. And I'd also like to point you guys to Logan, who did a video just the other day on this, titled Wayne LaPierre Could Sell NRA Museum Guns. That's on YouTube. Check it out.
Yeah.
Try to put a link in there.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're reporting that this is currently being reported on and that we are investigating further.
Well, I want to be careful because I work with a lot of museums and I don't want to just sit here and like, for anybody that's looking for Logan's channel, by the way, it's called High Caliber History. Like high is in up above my head and caliber history. So if you want to look up that, he has made the case much more eloquently than we will.
Yeah.
However, he represents one opinion of that. Not that I don't trust him. I do not want to stick my foot in a gopher hole. I would like to really know what's going on instead of just being the usual person that comes waving my arms out and going, something happened. So,
right. And what I'm planning on doing is putting my nose in the gopher hole, sniffing
the gophers.
And then waving my arms and being like, guys, there may be gophers inside.
I mean, it's a strong accusation coming from people that, if they're wrong, that's going to be really embarrassing. You know what I mean? But if they're right, it is going to be. If they're right, it looks like a pattern of behavior that we've seen in the NRA before, but not necessarily in their museum. Actually, the museum has had a very good reputation.
The museum and the ILA have had great reputations.
Right.
And it would be, I want to say it would be a shame to see that go, because they're just, you can't say this, but I will. It's rare to see really, really good gun museums. And it would be sad, especially regionally.
Well, I mean, I would be heartbroken if this happened. Because I've known a lot of the people that are involved in these museums and they're good people, and I would not suspect them of it at all. As a matter of fact, if it is happening as it said, chances are it's coming from top down There may even be NDAs in place. You know what I mean? You never know what somebody's situation is. So whatever happens, whether we're going to do, Matt especially is going to do some digging, and then we'll give you guys
I'm going to scream.
Yeah, we'll give you an update, and then even then, hold off on who to blame if it turns out to be true, because you never. This is very interesting. People don't realize this. A lot of institutions like museums are run by committees and outside directorship that really limits what they can do. People hear the term, like, let's say curator, and they think, oh, you're the curator, you can do whatever you want. You know, like Jonathan Ferguson over the Royal Armies. He does not get to do whatever he wants. He is a curator of several, you know what I mean? And they have a whole decision-making body that is independent from him. And they usually have policies on whether or not you can even take something to media at all. And that's very normal for these organizations. So not even having a quick response is not unusual either, because sometimes the committees overseeing all this don't even understand that they're supposed to respond to this stuff.
Right.
I see it
it's
all
possible that there hasn't been a committee meeting yet, and it won't be until.
Oh yeah, who knows? We have no transparency on this. The NRA is a very opaque organization anyway. Right. So the point being, though, is the news is out there, and we'll have to find out.
Yeah. All right. So this next one's a little interesting. So the city of Columbus, that's in Ohio, which is that's the state where if you ever go visit East Asia, everyone will assume you're from.
What?
God knows why. They think all Americans is from Ohio.
I don't know. I mean, half of South Carolinians used to be from there, but we're starting to get more.
So the city of Columbus passed a mag which banned individuals from having magazines that can hold 30 or more rounds. Criminal, which is odd, right? Like cutting it right at 30. Criminalized selling guns to people, but prohibited from having them, which already was the thing, and gave penalty to people found storing firearms in a way that minors can get them, which are their own set of problematic things. So it's not very often where we have the state being a good guy in this situation, but the Attorney General filed a lawsuit against the city.
That's brutal. That's
He's saying, hey, whoa, what about the state constitution and also preemption? And the county judge sided with the city.
Whoa.
Yeah. Weird.
Whoa.
Yeah. So, yeah, Dave Yost pushed back, saying the magazine capacity limit violates Ohio's right to bear arms, in particular focusing on the widely known Armalite AR-15 rifle. I don't know why they call it wrong. It's the Arian's Rifle 15.
Yeah, Arian rifle.
Yeah. Within 10 days of the ordinance's passage, a Fairfield County judge handed down...
Wait. I'm really sorry to interrupt you. Armalite AR-15 rifle.
Oh, my God.
That's ATM machine.
Yeah, ATM machine. Yeah.
Or they're insisting that it was made by the Armalite company in particular and no other. It's
the automatic ATM machine.
Yeah.
It's the hot water heater.
Yeah.
Heat your hot water.
Yeah, no, that I just caught that. That's brutal. Yeah. But yeah, so within 10 days of the ordinance's passage, a Fairfield County judge handed down a temporary restraining order against it. But since the Attorney General sought a preliminary injunction to permanently block it, this decision threw a wrench in that. So this is the fudge in the decision. Fudge Richard E. Behrens. Plaintiffs' repeated claim that the Columbus City firearms ordinances effectively ban AR-15 rifles is actually at odds with the limited evidence presented, which indicated that such rifles could operate with a magazine that holds less than 30 rounds. So yeah, with the injunction denied, the restraining order will expire at midnight. This was midnight yesterday. Midnight in the past, whenever you're watching this. Yeah. So, oh my God. And listen to the city attorney, Zach Klein. Today, the rule of law prevailed, and the biggest winners are the residents of Columbus, who want nothing more than to take common sense and reasonable steps to reduce the scourge of gun violence in our neighborhoods and keep our kids and communities safe.
If they don't like the Second Amendment, they should just secede.
We don't understand. If the rounds were fewer, you couldn't kill people.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes it a healing gun if it has less than 30. Exactly.
You know, it's a
The first 29 rounds don't count. It's only 30.
Oh, it's such a mess. Although I will say I do like it when the lizards fight amongst themselves, because then there's no.
Hey,
they fight with your tax dollars, right? But at least it's not your tax dollars you gave to a gun rights group or whatever.
Hey, at least the guy preemptively brought this back down on the city. I mean, normally you would have to have a plaintiff and go through the whole process,
right?
Like, this is saving someone losing their years of their life,
right? Yeah.
It's a big move.
It was actually cool, and it just sucks that the fudge is behaving in this fashion. And I have
to do an appeal.
Yeah, you're gonna do a repeal. Well, no, but this is a preliminary injunction, so right, the lawsuit's gonna go on. But what this
proceed on
means
its
is
merits. I see.
Yeah, but it does mean that they can begin enforcing this ban in Columbus,
which is great.
Yeah, which, whatever. That's brutal. I feel bad for the people of Columbus, but I also, it's hard for me to feel bad for them because I do not know where the state of Ohio is on a map as a coastal elitist. I'm kind of kidding. But you know where I do know where it is on the map? vzgrips.com. It's right there. It's on the worldwide website.
Wait, where are they located physically?
Florida.
Made in
That's why you knew it, because it looks like the thing.
Yeah, no, it's the place that looks like a gun.
No. Oh, gun. Yes, gun.
Yeah. VZ Grips is my favorite gun grip manufacturer based in the state of Florida that uses G10 alloys. They are easily fill that top spot for me. And they've been expanding their selection. We've got Shock Buff for 1911.
Do you talk to them?
Not really.
We should send an email.
Every time I send them an email, they're really nice to me.
That's good. They made you this.
This is why I kind of don't want to mess it up.
Hatsune Miku grips. Is that why?
I mean, they did make Miku grips for me, and they also gave me grips for my 40 cal Highbauer and my Smith & Wesson 25-2, all of which shoot really good. And I happen to believe that it is because if you order a VZ grip, it actually adds plus 10 damage and penetration to your gun.
And accuracy. It makes the grip turns it into more accurate. Maybe because accuracy and reliable is a teeter-totter. It might make them less reliable, but we'll have to see.
But it's accurate.
I literally have it. We've got this. I have their grips on my carry, and whenever I take it to the range, and they're like, "Oh yeah, you want to try my carry?" People, they'll pick it up, and especially novices tend to death grip. And they go, "Holy crap, these hurt!" Because I've got really aggressive ones on.
Yeah,
and then they start shooting, like, "Oh my god, it doesn't move at all." I'm like, "Yeah, I'll take the pain." Like, not that it hurts me. I have adult male hands, but
that have lifted something in there.
Yeah, my gut. But they are very aggressive, and to be honest with you, it's completely spoiled me because I'll try to get a hold of, like, especially anything with molded grips now that have like texture already built into them instead of panels. It's never sharp enough. It never feels like rigid enough of a grip. I don't know why. They're extremely good for that.
No, I am ruined for grips because of my Dan Wesson 1911 with VZ grips on it. Like, I can't. Yeah.
Oh, you could put their 1911 grips on those like weird AR 1911 grips.
Yeah, they even sell one of the AR-15 grips.
Oh, do they? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they got.
I want to try that now. I bet that feels good.
Well, anyway, guys, go to vzgrips.com. Use promo code ThisWeek15. That's THISWEEK15, and you'll get a discount. It's specifically from me. I arranged it. All right, make sure you know that whatever is, pay homage to me. I did.
Right.
Okay. All
we tried this week 20. It didn't work.
It didn't work. I didn't do that one. I didn't put that in.
You can put it in. Wait, do you think they would do? I want custom grips though.
Which anime girl do you want on there?
I want them to make grips for a Savage
Excuse me.
1861. That'd be great.
Yeah, with what Vocaloid do you want on yours?
No, I just want them.
Gumi?
Which one?
I just want green.
Luca?
Yeah,
The
which
Gumi,
one's
that's green. Yeah.
I don't want any anime.
All right, I'll let them know to get the Gumi one.
Guys, I don't have a mental disorder. I don't really watch anime.
That's not anime, silly. Anyway, the next.
It's robot singer girls wouldn't understand. Moving on.
Yeah. Anyway, it's an android. It's actually, so Florida. Just get a load of this headline. It is so confusing, right? And your brain will not know what to do with it. Florida Supreme Court upholds gun law banning restrictions.
Yeah, I had to read that 4 times.
Yeah, what does that mean to you? Right? Is this a good headline or a bad headline?
Like, what are they doing? Who wrote that? Is this like an AI thing?
Banning restrictions is good.
Yeah, Brendan Farrington of the Associated Press. So yes, it was an AI. But so when I first saw this, I was like, what? And I clicked on it and I was like, oh, right, it's that thing. So Florida a while ago passed a law which imposed a fine for local government actors who would vote on a gun restriction, right? Because Florida has preemptions. So it's like, not only can you not do that, if you do it,
if you waste our time with this thing you're not allowed to do, we will charge you for it.
That's really big.
And so for whatever reason, our agricultural commissioner, Nikki Fried, joined with a bunch of who no one likes in this state. Everyone hates her.
It's funny because even the Democrats hate her because she wanted the people who have medicinal marijuana cards to also be able to have carry cards, and they're like, why would you stick up for this? It's like everybody hates her. It's great.
She has only done so I will say the reason I started hating her was, and if you're a longtime viewer or watcher, listener of this show, you've heard me say this story a few times, and you'll be like, what the hell is wrong with Matt and gas pumps? Well, I like to sniff. So on the gas pump, they are all inspected by the Department of Agriculture. The Department of Agriculture is responsible for a bizarre amount of things, including like security licensing and carry permits. But they also do the gas pump inspections. And so for the longest time, you had this plain government sticker saying, inspected good until this time. Well, when Nikki Fried becomes ag commissioner, she changes it to this big ass like bumper sticker size thing with her ugly smiling face on it, and her name takes up half of the damn thing. So it was like every single gas pump was a campaign ad for her, and it just infuriated everybody. They actually changed the law in Florida to where the gas pump stickers can only be text.
They did a similar thing here with Pritzker did a big old gas tax right before coronavirus, and then as gas prices started to climb out of it, people were like not doing so hot. Mm-hmm. So then he canceled his own gas tax, and the only way that a gas station could not assess the tax is if on the gas pumps they put a picture of him saying, "Oh, Governor Pritzker, he's the one who lowered your gas taxes," despite the fact that he was the only reason they existed in the first place, which is great, right? It's like a campaign ad that you're forcing gas stations to run if they don't want to collect the extra tax. It's horrible.
So yeah, the Florida Supreme Court disagreed with Nikki Fried and her little disgusting city dwelling subhuman friends that sued the state over this law. Right, their argument was it goes too far because you're going to fine us for breaking the law, and the Supreme Court disagreed, Supreme Court of Florida, saying that local officials do not have exemptions from being fined. It is not a core municipal function to occupy an area that the legislature has preempted, and local governments have no lawful discretion or authority to enact ordinances that violate state preemption. The law calls for a fine of $5,000 for any officials who willfully violate the legislation.
That's hilarious.
Yes. And there was a dissenting judge who is Jorge Labarga. And he said the punishment is an impermissible judicial intrusion into the official's legislative thought process, and it undermines the official's ability to effectuate the constituents' will. hey, the Florida Constitution is pretty clear. You don't get to override the state. little mayor of Palm Beach, little whatever. But so yeah, that was actually a good development, and I'm pleased. And I hope that the thing that sucks is they all know it happened now. I hope that in like 5 years they forget.
We need that at the federal level. That's how this all gets resolved.
Yeah,
is you just have that at the federal level where anybody who willingly votes yes on something that later becomes that later gets deemed unconstitutional or violative of rights is just personally responsible for some fee. And at the federal level, it should be like 20 grand. Right?
Enough. You have to remember, these are politicians. Don't you remember what was going on with Pelosi's stock fund? It's got to be like 20 mil. 20
grand and 20% of their portfolio. Now they're playing with fire.
Yeah, now you're cooking with gas. Oh, Matthias, anything for you to say?
I hate politicians so it's so funny because it's just like, hey, you're not allowed to waste time doing this thing that you literally can't do. Yeah. Oh my God, we're going to get so many fees because we were planning to constantly do what we were preempted from doing. But because the only reason they could possibly have to try to pass this stuff is to cause chaos for gun owners. That's it. This is the only reason to even do this stuff is to cause chaos and confusion for gun owners.
Yeah, to like cause it so that gun owners cannot drive through your city.
Right.
Like,
no, because they can't actually make it happen because of the preemption, right? It won't stick. They can't stick. But the problem is they just want to make sure that they drag one idiot into court and really ruin one person's life before it doesn't stick again. Right? Because that's all they're doing. They're just using it as a way to browbeat some sucker in order to show off, hey, you better just go ahead and obey us even though we have no authority.
Right.
I mean, that's what they're doing. To be fair, we see that with a lot of organizations, even on the federal level nowadays, where it's like, yeah, we know we can't do this, but we're going to do it because it'll take 5 years to undo it, and we're going to at least ruin one person's life, if not two. So great.
And you don't want to be that guy, right? So you better.
Right. So it's like a weird reverse lotto, where it's just like, hey, congratulations, we're about to really somebody, and it might be you. So don't play.
Right.
That's it.
Yep. That's it. That's
the bad lotto.
Yeah, the reverse lotto.
Yeah, the bad lotto.
So next up is another good one. So a lot of you guys probably heard that the Illinois gun ban was blocked for a large number of plaintiffs. What you guys probably don't know about is how it happened.
And it's really funny.
You're probably thinking it's a Second Amendment lawsuit.
I think it's a Second Amendment lawsuit.
You'd be wrong, sir.
Oh no.
This is procedural.
It's so funny.
Yeah. Why don't you take it away, Mr. Ivan? So I've read through the arguments, and I'm only a rat paralegal for a rat lawyer. So you take some of this with a grain of salt if you're a real life lawyer. But they asked a state judge, that's an elected judge, mind you, not an appointed one, but an elected judge, so low level in the state courts, for a restraining order. In the restraining order usually only goes as broad as the plaintiffs on the case. And so they crammed like almost 900 plaintiffs into this case, which was pretty cool because then it made the court document over 1,000 pages long, which is a really big power move, I think. But essentially what they were saying is that we call paper terrorism in the industry.
The way that this lawsuit got, what they were alleging is the way that this ban got passed violated the state's own laws put in place to restrict the way that politicians can pass laws. Because, we're familiar with at the federal level, they do all sorts of like omnibus fuck games that no one likes. And so Illinois has a state law that, several state laws that tried to stop that from happening. So the two big ones that they really got them on, there was three things that they ended up getting the judge to agree on strongly. The first one was that the bill was not single issue. So Illinois law says that in order to avoid omnibus stuff that wouldn't pass with one particular issue, but if you put two issues together that maybe both sides agree on, they both screw over the other side. Like in order to prevent that sort of omnibus game happening, that they say that any bill that passes the legislature has to be about a single issue. And the state itself argued that because obviously this bill was passed with a shell bill we talked about last time. It's like
right, but you didn't say what the shell bill was. It was a bill relating to amusement park rides.
Yeah, so the first shell bill that they tried was concerning amusement park rides, and then they put it in another shell bill that was
the
like
insurance one,
like regarding insurance codes or whatever. And then the title of the bill was just an act regarding regulation, which is broad. And so then the state Supreme Court precedent is whenever it's overly broad like that, in the court that they get challenged, they can say what the title or what the specific single issue of the bill is. And so they said, well, it's clearly just firearms. Everything that this ban concerned was just firearms themselves. Except this bill also put different penalties and changed regulations on human trafficking and drug dealing and all sorts of other stuff. So of course it wasn't close to single issue. So the judge says, look, you guys messed up. This is not a single issue bill, and the title's overly vague, so don't play those games. I know what you were doing, which is cool because like normally procedural violations are made and judges just like look the other way because they're like, yeah, whatever. The next big issue that they made was the 3 readings rule. In the Illinois, I think it was in 1980, the Illinois State Congress agreed that they'll police themselves for this, and that the courts no longer have like imagine this: the state legislator votes that the courts don't get to rule over any of the laws that they themselves break. The courts can only rule over laws that the peasants break. That's insane. But so far had been good law in Illinois until now.
That sounds just like they were codifying the reality.
they were codifying reality. They can do whatever they want, but you're different. So the 3 readings rule essentially says that any bill that gets passed has to be read 3 separate times on 3 separate days in both houses, which sort of slows down the amount of time before a bill gets rammed through so the public can be aware of it. Right. So the people who are going to be voting on it can like actually be there. Because, some days they're, especially at a state level, right? Like state legislators don't live at the Capitol. They're like at their homes sometimes and traveling back and forth. So like,
or sunning themselves on a rock.
Right. Sunning on the rock. And so, the 3 days rule is sort of there to make sure that everybody's well aware of things. Like they massively violated that here because, this bill had its language completely removed, was essentially shelled, had the assault weapons ban put inside of it and passed in under 24 hours. Right. That's not 3 readings on 3 separate days. That's the total opposite of that.
Right.
And so, on the court or on the House of Representatives floor while they were debating this bill, one of the representatives in opposition to the bill spoke up and said, this violates, they're supposed to be policing themselves. They said, hey, if you guys pass this tonight, it violates the 3 readings rule. We're breaking the own law that we said we're going to hold ourselves accountable to. And they just ignored it. They're like, yeah, whatever, not a big deal. And so this judge is like, hey, so when you guys promised that you like hold each other responsible and do this right, you said you'd hold yourselves to a high standard and the courts wouldn't have to step in. And if you guys messed up, the courts could. And he's like, this might be a bridge too far. So he says, yes, I'm going to get you guys on the 3 readings rule violations. Even though you took that power away from the court, that was only contingent on you guys doing it to yourself. And it was brought up and you ignored it. So good work, idiots. And then the final part is something that I'm aware of very early challenges to assault weapons bans, doing it under the Equal Protections Clause, where they say that because the theory that they're using for these bans is that people with more training, like cops, can use these guns safely still, but people with less training, like not cops, don't have enough training, so they can't be safe or trusted with these sorts of guns, and that's why cops get exempted and you don't. Right? That's how that gets squared under the Equal Protections laws. And Illinois has its own equal protection law, and so does the federal government. But the sort of interesting thing with Illinois' ban is it went broader than most assault weapons bans with the exemptions. It exempted wardens who are political appointees who have no requirement for training whatsoever. It exempted prison guards, which, while they're sort of doing a job like cops, don't need, some of them get firearm training if they're prison guards who have guns, but like the guys who are just there making sure that fights don't happen don't usually get gun training. Like riot training maybe, but not, they're not trained with long guns, right?
Right, because them having a gun could be an issue.
Right, you don't have a gun in a prison most of the time because it would just get stolen from you.
Yeah, they would take it and then do funny things.
And so the guy who was brought this case was, I think, Tom DeVore. I think Tom is his first name. DeVore is his last name. And he'd failed a bid for
Tom's
attorney general.
Last name.
He'd failed a bid for attorney general in Illinois previously, but then brought this lawsuit. And I think he rather effectively argued, like, this doesn't make any sense for equal protections, because we asked you while we were debating, are prior veterans of the United States, and of course I don't really agree with this line of reasoning, because I think it's gross that, like,
right,
these class of people are okay because I think there is sufficient level of training, like that.
Right.
Stupid, irrelevant.
The special privileges cause.
It's a stupid, irrelevant thing, but it's so funny to watch the state get strung up on this now, where he's like, so a veteran of our military who has more training, ostensibly in most cases, with these guns than cops do, they're not exempted. That's strange, but wardens are political appointees who may have, like, you can be a warden and never have touched a gun ever. Mm-hmm. Why are they exempted? You're saying the difference is their training, but then you're wholly inconsistent with that. And the judge absolutely annihilated the state on that question, because the state's own defense there in court was, we don't actually have to argue equal protections, because if it's a Second Amendment right, then you have to make a Second Amendment claim, and it's not an equal protections claim. And the judge was not hearing any of that, because that's right. That's stupid, right? If you're going to say that this is fine under the Equal Protections Act because it concerns the Second Amendment, and anything that's anytime a second right is involved, equal protections just goes out the window. That's kind of nonsense. And so the judge wasn't hearing any of it. He absolutely slammed the door on the state with, like, if you say this is about safety and training, you're going to have to at least make it look that way. And when you're asked about it during debate, you're going to have to keep that pretense up. And you failed to do both of those. So the judge really crapped on them pretty hard. And the injunction hearing is coming up on February 1st. And I know, like, the immediate knee-jerk reaction you saw from people is like, oh, but this is only for 800 people. It doesn't matter. And a lot of, sort of foot stomping and getting mad about it. But, like, of course it sucks if it doesn't, if you're not one of those 800 people, right? Because nothing changes for you. But big step in the first direction, right? That first lawsuit having one feather in your cap is good. Right. This judge seems like he's got his head set square on his shoulders, right? Because the state showed up and said a bunch of, like, the state essentially showed up and said, we don't have to follow our own laws, but you do. Oh, and also, if you have two rights at the same time, and it doesn't actually matter anymore. Like, we're violating two of your rights, so it counts as zero. They cancel each other out. Like, of course not. So the judge seems like he's got a pretty good head on his shoulders, and I believe he's going to be the judge overseeing the injunction hearing. So if the preliminary injunction hearing gets settled more or less the same way, then it is possible that then a Second Amendment claim gets added to this injunction hearing, which would probably only strengthen the suit so far. Then everyone in
it would take an amended complaint. The nice thing here is that they're kind of forcing the government to argue in these different ways, right? Because there's pending lawsuits
that are in federal court, state.
Which is there's also another state cause of action in Crawford County, and a federal case filed by Illinois State Rifle Association, which I think they're pretty good. They're
good, but I wish I could talk with their leader guy, because their leader guy tries to do their PR, and he's really, really bad at it. Right. Like just this week, he went on a Chicago radio news show to talk about the assault weapons ban and his legislation against it. And the radio show host was asking some pushy questions where it's like, oh, but 25% of deaths in mass shootings are by assault weapons, on a totally different definition of assault weapons than Illinois banned, right? So, like, it's like a brain bender, right? And so that's such an underhand, it's a pointed question, but it's underhanded enough that it's easy to spin. Like, define assault weapon. Who defined assault weapon there?
Wait, 25%? That's
I
thought you said this was the weapon
that's
of mass shooters.
Right. The easiest underhanded there is 25%. So it's like a minority of them. So so all the other normal guns are somehow deadlier.
Wait, so what's the 75%? Let's get that.
Like, A, I dispute some of these numbers, but B, I'll take them because you've just told me that they represent a minority. So if we ban them, well, I'm sorry, how does this stop mass shootings? Because they're literally not the majority of mass shooting weapons.
And the director of ISRA just kept getting more and more flustered. They weren't hard questions. And, like, the radio show host eventually, says something to the effect of, like, but I don't see how anyone could be opposed to, like, these big weapons being banned. So he goes down AR-15s big weapons. And like, I mean, like,
shooters.
there's a delicate way to handle that, right? Where it's like, well, this legislation doesn't go after, like, the correct way to handle this is, well, the legislation doesn't go after big weapons necessarily. In fact, it doesn't even exempt 22 long rifles. It goes after the smallest weapons too, right? That's the smart way to handle it. But he, you know, he did this. Everything isn't a big weapon. A big weapon.
No, you get
458, whether it be Magnum or a 300 Win Mag, bolt action. That's a big gun.
That's a big one.
And the radio show host,
these guys easily get drawn on these side arguments where they're like, well, it's not big, and it's like, wait, what are you implying? You're implying that big
is
weapons
fine,
were
But it's
bad?
okay to ban. It's okay to ban big.
Yeah.
Right.
and so he rattles off a bunch of big guns, and then the radio show host starts pushing back on him again, like saying
The correct answer is the Second Amendment didn't specify how big the gun had to be.
right. The radio show host starts pushing back with like, well, what sort of gun legislation would you support? Do you think all gun laws are bad? And he eventually just goes like, if you shut up, then I'll answer you. And then she kicks him off. Yeah, and then she kicks him off the air. Like,
To be fair, that was probably okay.
Yeah. Well.
I mean, it's just so massively unprofessional. Of like you're there to make this lawsuit look good. It's like reasonable people are supporting this sort of thing, and you're like blustering and trying to shout over this news host and then tell her to shut up. Like,
You know what I will say from when I've done media in the Second Amendment space for quite some time. I used to be on TV and sitting next to representatives from all the other organizations, and I feel like there's just this bizarre instinct to parrot dogma and to try to come up with new dogma.
Yes.
Like, there's no appreciation for nuance. I can't and this is the one, and you probably know where I'm going with this after him saying that's not a big gun every single time. And I remember there's somebody specifically from one organization that I used to be very close friends with, and they, by the way, were never a gun person until they got anyway. And they'd always be like, "Oh, the AR-15, not weapon of war. It's semi-automatic. It's not M16 machine gun weapon of war." And I'd just be like, "You idiot! Stop! Stop it! I am trying to eventually overturn that.
Yeah, undo that bullshit.
That was
Machine guns are already illegal.
Yeah,
You're accepting, like, you accept the gun grabber's framing whenever you say that, well, it's not a weapon of war, as though that means weapon of wars are okay to ban. Like, of course, it's a farcical term. A Remington 700 is a weapon of war, both in its inception and conception, and its use today.
Ivan fell in the trap. Did you hear him? He just did it to himself. He didn't even know he did it. He started arguing what is and isn't a weapon of war. When the divine answer is, they put it in the Constitution because they were weapons of war.
Well, of course, that's why I'm saying is
the
like
real answer is like
they're all weapons of war.
You idiot! If anything, we should ban the AR-15 because it's not a weapon of war. We should be handing out M16s because those are covered.
The ATF knocks at your door and asks to see your lowers, and he's like, "No third pinhole. You're done, buddy."
When they said keep and bear arms, if you had showed them a 22 single shot rifle, they'd have been like, That's not an arm. That's a tool. There's no protection for that.
There was state laws. There were
that.
Yeah, where it said a minimum caliber and a minimum quantity of ammunition that you had to have in your home.
The Kostas Moros, as I think how you pronounce his name, is Greek. He's one of California Rifle Pistol Association's lawyers, but he's done a lot of research into he was trying to find out the answer to when did the notion that the Second Amendment isn't an individual right come from? And of course, it doesn't show up until into the 1900s, around the 1940s is the earliest time he found that courts were arguing this. Mm-hmm. And early on, so in that time between the Revolutionary and Civil Wars, debate around the Second Amendment was about whether you could own any arm or specifically only arms that were implements of war. Because there were some states that said you can't own a little concealed Derringer because that's a useless weapon for a war. Instead, you can own anything that's like military grade real hardware. Cannons, utterly fine to own. Repeating rifles, we hope you own as many of those as possible, unless you're black or a freed slave or a Native American. That's not okay.
Hey, or Irish.
Or Irish.
Irish or other primates.
It's like Italians and Irish are the two subhumans of Europe.
And sometimes Catholics too.
Yeah.
If you're in one of them good old Quaker states, no Catholics. Get out.
Yeah. No, it's so fascinating because Ira Allen had a ship full of 80,000 small arms and pieces of artillery seized by the British and argued in a court of admiralty where the British argument was clearly he's staging a insurrection against the Canadians because who would need this? And his argument was, in America, arms are free merchandise, such that anyone who has the capital and wishes to sport with it may make their houses into armories and their gardens into parks of artillery.
I like this guy.
This feels personal.
But he won on that. It's like that was.
I love that the British are like, he is American.
I'm sorry, sir. I didn't know you were American. Here's your 80,000 guns back.
What do you have 80,000 firearms? America? Checks out.
I have property and wish to sport with it.
That should be all it takes in modern courts. The Supreme Court should pass down a test where it's like anytime guns are like even like a whisper in the air concerned in the law, all you should have to do is come up, represent yourself, and be, Your Honor, I'm American, and then sit back down, and the judge is like, okay, you can have him. Give him his machine guns back. Yeah, no, the judge would say, and I'm awarding sanctions against the government. You will pay all of this man's illustrious attorney's fees.
Honestly, it genuinely feels like the Second Amendment argument, along with some of the other things that we're seeing in law, ultimately stem from. It honestly feels like the one thing we're missing in policy, or law rather, is people don't know where the line is for someone to be adjudicated as unfit to be a citizen of the goddamn United States. Because that's what everybody's afraid of. They're afraid of the mass killer. They're afraid of the murderer, the serial killer. They're afraid of the person who is going to break the social contract.
Right.
And then they say, well, if you're a felon, you can't have the firearm. Well, that's weird. You apparently paid your time and are fit to release into society where you can drive 3/4 of a ton of a vehicle around. You know what I mean? Like you can do a lot of damage with a van,
Van of peace.
If you can be turned down on the street, you can be turned down on the street, right? Or is there something that is in between being a completely free person and a damaged person? And we need to know what the hell that is, because that seems like it comes up way more often in way more ways than the gun issue itself, right? We see it with homelessness. We see it with vagrancy. We see it with all sorts of issues in which people are now having very awkward arguments about rights. And then I know nobody wants to make two classes of people, and I'm not even advocating for it. I'm saying that there must be a point at which someone is adjudicated. We have a process, but we don't seem to talk about that when we talk about the insane. We just start talking about whether or not everybody can own guns because some people are broken.
Right.
Well, that's ridiculous. If we reduce all of our rights down to the point that they match what's available to a person that's unfit to be an adult,
right, we
will have no rights.
Right, because moral agency, right? So rights stem from, and this is something I get a lot of gripe for this. The reason rights are a concept as they are, it's why animal rights cannot exist. And then people are always like, oh, what do you mean? Your right to do any action, right, is only as good against, it goes as far as the next man's nose, right? So your ability to secure and exercise that right is predicated on your moral agency. So that is why animal rights cannot be a thing, because animals are not moral actors. And up to the early 20th century, there was no such thing as a lifetime firearm prohibition. It was temporary. You would be stripped of your arms and the ability to have them, for high crimes, treason, stuff like that, until you proved, and the early statute said stuff like your friendliness to liberty. In fact, it was jails. There was a practice, again, up until the early 20th century, where they would hold your rifle for you and return it to you as you went out. Like, because it was just understood, this is your thing and you need it.
It's like you shot two guys. You came in with the rifle. Well, he's back out. Better give him his rifle back.
But it's just so fascinating because the general public views firearms as a luxury sporting good now. And that reflects a excessively comfortable
that's a good
view of life.
Well, the problem is a lot of people view firearms in such a way that, like, I get it. If you show up to, I don't know, somebody's birthday party at the bar,
Right.
and you bring a gigantic fire extinguisher with you, and you slap it down on the table, they're going to go, why do you have that? And you're like, just in case it's a fire. And if you haul that thing around everywhere at all times, right, people are going to be like, I really don't think, like, there's a fire extinguisher over there. We could all use it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But then you don't really have that with arms, do you? There's not like a firearm on the wall that says, in case of crazy asshole, everybody else can use this. Right? We don't, we build these into our society, though. We have we have requirements for sprinklers and fire extinguishers and all sorts of stuff in public spaces because that might happen.
Right.
And yet, I would say easily 99.9% of buildings around me have never burned down. Like, not just with me in them, that I know of. You know what I mean? The ones that, all the buildings that were around when I was a kid, less than 0.01% burned down. The rest were either still up or they were torn down purposely because they were being used for something else, right? And yet, fire extinguishers everywhere, a common good to everybody.
And yet, what percentage of gas stations around you have been robbed?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah, the one right around the corner 6 times. Like, that's the thing. Like, sadly,
this is why I've repeatedly advocated for the community gun.
Community guns. Community universal public machine gun.
Just on the wall in
case of mean asshole break glass, and it's a Sterling. Something simple. Anyone could use it.
Yeah, it's hell. You could use a shotgun with mini shells, low penetration. Like, it'd be funny. Like, whatever. But the whole point is, we do have these security risk understandings in other ways. We just don't see it because it's integrated into our environment, and we don't integrate the firearm into the overall environment. It is only carried by the individual. And so the individual carrying a pistol quietly and calmly is essentially the person that's planned to have a fire extinguisher at every stairwell. That's all it is. But people really want to represent it as a personal thing, as an ego. You know what I mean? They want to represent it as your projection of authority onto somebody else. And you're like, no, this is my last ditch, you know?
Yeah. In case something bad happens.
Yeah. It's like, I'm doing the pistol because it'd be really awkward to do anything else, if I'm honest. And in certain situations, I would much rather have the rifle.
Yeah, that's why I'm in love with my crank. That thing's perfect. Yeah. I think I've told this on the show before, but the one that boggles my mind is, I pretty much always have a handgun on me, and then when I'd be hanging out with my mom, I'd relax after dinner, and I take it out of my and of course there's no children around or whatever. I take my holster off, put it on the table just so I can kind of relax, and my mom would say, "You carry a gun to your mother's house?" And I'm like, yeah. And she's like, why would you bring that here?
Because you know all of my weaknesses, Mom.
No, and I'm like, well, because I don't consider you less valuable than everyone else. And she just kind of stares at me for a minute. I consider you slightly more valuable than the people in the gas station. I go,
well, gee, I don't know, Mom. If you had no smoke detectors, I'd probably get some of those for you too.
Actually, that was a separate thing that I handled. There's a pattern here, and then it's another one, or somebody.
Well, she's
you carry your gun to church?
Oh, like that one guy.
And I'm like, yes. Why would you bring a gun into the house of God? In case something bad happens there. It's still in the physical world, and I wrote an article on
that. That was actually funny too, because it's like, why would you need a fire extinguisher at church?
Okay, yeah.
You think God's gonna let it burn down? Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. I wrote an article about this in the National Review, like in 2017, because it was after a couple church shootings went out, and this was before people started, hosing down church shooters. But I wrote saying, I even quoted scripture where, hey, it's not unclean to bring a firearm into church. Like this weird American tradition we have of disarming at church is actually based on weird like tribal fighting that we don't do anymore. And I got pissed on, like absolutely pissed on by conservatives. They were so mad at me, and I'm still confused as to why. But anyway, let's move on now to the sponsor of today's Grow. It's MAV Corporation. We think you'll like these. Tac Chime 5.5-inch resonator is $329.85.
That's a nice price.
That's a nice price. AR-15 bolt carrier groups for as low as $42.69. The modular upper stripped has been reduced in price, $28.91. And MAF now has the cheapest you will see on optics and regular edition stripped AR parts as well.
Ooh.
And a whole new set of, again, excellent price, great quality, lower parts kits.
Oh, it comes with the piece of paper.
Look at that cute paper that it has.
It's very helpful to know how to put that together.
Yes. And that is from Big Mouse Small Arms, headquartered in Orlando. So check it out, and show viewers of the show, if you go on there and purchase something, use promo code FRN to get a discount. That's Foxtrot Romeo November. Go to maf-arms.com.
You remember the F because it's a promo code.
Family of 6-year-old Virginia student who shot his teacher breaks silence. Insists gun was secured.
This is crazy.
So yeah, we talked about this last week where, I mean,
this story just keeps getting more and more like it beggared belief in the first place.
All right, let's start with the review. I don't know anything happened. So a 6-year-old.
Okay.
Yeah.
So 6-year-old in a classroom.
Okay.
Rifles through desk. Produces a gun.
Wait. I'm so confused.
Yep.
He's in the teacher's desk?
No, he is at his little desk.
Oh, in his school.
Yes.
Okay, he's at his little desk in the school.
Rifles in his desk.
He reaches in there.
Produces a handgun.
Okay.
Points it at the teacher. Discharges it and hits the teacher.
Did he say anything?
I don't think so.
Okay.
She survived, thank God.
That's
but
good.
They were saying,
this is the least expected thing.
You know, they were saying, how could this have happened? Because Virginia has a law that requires safe storage of firearms when you have kids around.
They also have a law against shooting people, don't they?
No.
Oh, okay.
No. They haven't got that one yet. We're catching up. The law is going to catch up one day.
Okay.
And we're going to make this little thing they're doing
I feel like we just outlaw shooting people. We could get around some of this. You know,
eventually, the law will catch up, but it can only move so fast.
Okay.
So, everyone, the news reports, it was so fascinating. We're saying, well, yeah, Virginia has a law that says you have to secure guns away from children, but like it doesn't have a law that says all guns must be secured. So they should probably do that.
What?
So now the family of the 6-year-old boy,
is so confusing.
Are speaking out. They're saying the firearm the child brought to school was secured and that they are praying for the teacher who was struck. Our heart goes out to our son's teacher, and we pray for her healing in the aftermath of such an unimaginable tragedy as she selflessly served our son and the children in the school.
What?
Yeah,
So did they specify how it was secured that he managed to get it?
Well, it was a Taurus, which usually is secured from discharging at all.
Right.
But
that's not true. They just break afterwards.
Yeah. Our family has always been committed to responsible gun ownership and keeping firearms out of the reach of children. The statement added, but did not elaborate on where the gun was being kept.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's...
Look, I mean, I'm going to be honest. I might ruffle some feathers. I'm kind of okay with people facing charges for like negligence if you allow your 6-year-old to somehow come into possession of your loaded handgun.
Well, that's common law.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't think you need
a new law.
I don't think you need a securing rule because what I don't believe now is that if somebody else's 6-year-old wanders into my locked house, like they break a window somehow and get in, you know what I mean? If somebody else's child enters my home without my permission and through a clearly secured door of some sort and takes loaded firearms out, I don't see how I should be liable because I don't have 6-year-olds at home, you know, none around at the moment. Therefore, I don't need to secure anything interior to the home. I do need to secure the home to some degree so that random people don't just water in my home. But
To an extent.
right. But I don't that part. Yeah, if it's just because I've seen that before with cases too, where people have been try to get people in trouble because some teenager broke into their house, stole a firearm, and then went and shot somebody with it.
Right. That's
not fair. That was a crime that got the gun. But if you are a parent of a child and you somehow get in a position where your loaded firearm is in the hands of your child, there's room for some negligence there. I think for charge, but I don't think you need a special rule for it. It feels like that would be fairly obvious that would be a negligent,
right?
Yep. No, well, that's the thing is the American legal system is becoming French faster than you can imagine.
Oh, I hate those guys.
They're gross.
There's just always, we need to have a specific law for this. It's like, did you know that we've actually been dealing with murder for quite some time? And
but what about murder? What about murder when the guy's 6 foot 1.2 inches and the other guy's 5 foot 7.3 inches?
Subsection 5.71232-612. Oh boy. But yeah, so Newport News Police Chief Steve Drew previously said no altercation took place before the shooting, noting the boy raised the gun and fired once at Svena, who took a defensive position. Another school employee rushed into the classroom and restrained the boy, who became combative. So
I do not want to know what it's like to try to jump a 6-year-old with a handgun. No
trials have been filed yet in the case.
That's like more scary than like a regular like homeless person with a handgun or something.
Yeah, that's like
because a 6-year-old, there's no chance that they care.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. There's no connection as to what's going on there.
Yeah, there is no moral agency. You just are. You just exist. Last news story we have today is a fascinating Florida man tale. Let's just process this headline together. Royal Palm Beach teacher with gun at school says he was being watched through phone. Arrest report states.
That's possible.
This is our homie right here.
I'd watch him through his phone.
Was he caught with a gun at school? I'm confused.
Okay, so let's go through the story.
Give it to me, thanks. I don't know what's going on.
Go through the story together. So it starts out with a motorcycle blocking the northern gate of the school.
Okay.
Cops come because they're called. They're like, hey, there's this weird motorcycle that's blocking the gate.
Okay. They
identify Mr. Krasnicki as the owner of the motorcycle.
Oh, okay.
He's a teacher at the school. So the officer goes to Krasnicki's classroom where he says that he accidentally parked in front of the gate and would move it. Krasnicki then added that he rode his motorcycle to school because his ex-girlfriend's ex-husband had cut his brakes on his car. He further stated that he was being watched through his phone and was being listened to.
Ooh, okay.
Krasnicki agreed to voluntarily receive help at Florida JFK North Hospital for a mental health evaluation. Right. When asked if he had any weapons on him, Krasnicki said that he had a concealed handgun in his waistband. When searching him,
Mexican guy.
And here we go, boys. What gun? No cheating if you already read it.
Oh, I haven't read it. I'll let Ivan guess first. I'll take whatever second guess.
Is it a Ruger LCP?
No, it's way better. Better.
Yeah, LCP.
Taurus PT92.
Palmetto State Armory dagger.
Oh!
Dang!
It is official. It has become the people's gun.
Oh, that's so good.
It is
the official gun of they're watching me through my phone.
I mean, they are, first of all, let's be honest.
Right. I mean, he didn't say anything wrong.
I mean, none of that's not true. You notice whenever they interviewed Zuckerberg, he had black tape over his laptop camera?
Oh.
If Zuckerberg's putting black tape over his laptop camera.
But yeah, he had a Palmetto Dagger 9mm handgun along with a pocket knife with a 3-inch blade. He was booked into the Palm Beach County Jail just before 1 p.m. and a judge set his bond at $20,000 and ordered him to have no weapons and no contact with any Palm Beach County schools. The school has reported that he will not be coming back to work.
Is that because he's not allowed to have a firearm at school?
So, you know, there's, of course, the federal prohibition, and Florida does have the school guardian program, but you have to be, turbo super duper licensed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And take 1.8 million hours of training, and it was very useless.
Is it weird? is it weird that him having the firearm at school is not what I consider to be the big problem? I think the big problem is him being like a weird schizo at school.
Yeah.
In a position of authority.
But if we made that illegal, where would we be all out of public school teachers?
And to be fair to him, by the way, he surrendered himself for care. Like, isn't that what they said?
They were like, "Do you want to get some help mentally?" And he was like,
"Yeah, I should probably do that."
I kind of think it was a dick move for them to arrest him for.
That's what I'm saying. Like all the extra charges and stuff seem like kind of. Guys, he
because if he's unwell,
not only that, but is this what you want to put on blast? Like, you want to be like, hey, this guy had a mental incident, and I mean, he's literally being that weird that you decided to take him in for care, right?
Right.
So then you must think, if we're taking him in for care, then he's probably unfit mentally. Why are we charging him for doing something?
Right.
It discourages
that had no victim at the time, that he willingly gave up for care. Like, I'm sorry, but like, if we want people to seek out care, this is probably the wrong way to go.
Yeah. Well, this is the way we've been doing it forever. We've aggressively disincentivized people from seeking care.
That's what I'm saying. Like, this is buck wild. I'd be like, if it were me, I'd have been like, don't tell anybody else. I'll just give this to you later when you are not insane.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Like, get the not sane paper. Call. Here's my card. Call me.
Yeah, you get cleared of all this and some regular medication. You can take this back home. Don't take it to school. But to be fair, it sounds like he probably didn't make the connection. He wasn't supposed to do that.
No, he was probably actually afraid that somebody was watching him.
Yeah, and there's nothing in the story says that he was threatening to anybody, does it?
No. They went to his classroom. He's like, oh, oops. I mean, he accidentally parked his motorcycle in front of a gate. That's weird. But he's
not really. So you're imagining that he blocked the opening in the gate?
No, you're right.
It might be a folding gate, and he might have parked it in front of the ability to unfold the gate.
Right.
Like, it might have been like, I'm parking along this fence.
Yeah.
Oh, this is actually a gate. Shit.
You're right.
Yeah.
He's like, oops, I'll move it. Whatever. Yeah, no, that's awful. And it's just like, that's the issue with cops. If you were a real classic police person, right, protecting and serving your community, you want to prevent a crime, not go and find one.
Right.
And so it would be, hey, buddy, I'm going to tell on you, but
we're going to a good place.
This thing, I'm gonna put it in my pocket for right now. Okay.
To be fair to the cop, though, like if they're running body cams and stuff, they can't do that shit. You know.
Yeah, that's the thing. Body cams are a double-edged sword.
This is where it goes to the prosecutor, though, because they should have been like, this guy's already in care. He's unfit. Let's seize the firearm, and as soon as we get the word that he's fit, let's talk to him about these charges and how we can negotiate this. You know what I mean? You're not gonna, like, why are you slapping charges on a guy that? Now, by the way,
employee who's crazy. I mean, generally speaking, do you want
to be a nuanced bastard about this? Sit on the gun, sit on the charges, and see that he actually volunteers for care. Yeah. And if he doesn't do the voluntary care program, then slap him on charges to keep him out of school if you think that's his problem. But why slap him on top of him when he hasn't done? What
you have to understand is you guys are stupid, and you guys think that the criminal justice system should rehabilitate people and help them get into.
We need to chain them to the prisons.
Right. No. How it actually works here in America, okay, where I'm from, is you find somebody who's breaking an arbitrary rule, and it doesn't matter the underlying factor. It doesn't matter. And you beat the shit out of them. And you literally chain their leg to the prison and never release it. Even after you tell them they're free, but they're just allowed to go out of the door with their legs still chained to the prison.
Yes. Got to pull them back.
Yeah.
That's the right way to do it. Who's going to clean up the highways?
Mm-hmm. If I tell you, Matt, there's some children and there's a man with his gun somewhere in the building with the children, right? Mm-hmm. Your first question is going to be like, okay, who's the man with the gun? Like, is he sane? Does he like children? You know, but not too much.
I think my question would be,
you're going to start thinking things about who is this person?
My first question would be, is he wielding it?
Right.
Yeah.
Is he just carrying it? Yeah, he's just carrying it. Oh, okay. Is he mentally stable? Maybe.
Let's talk to him.
We better go check on that, right? And then you go in there like, hey man, you're acting kind of crazy. Do you want to get some help?
You want to come hang out with me over here?
And you're like,
at the mental hospital?
Because again, this reiterates, the concern is not the firearm. The concern is the mental state of the person that's around the children, right? And then you go, hey, we're concerned about your mental state around these children. He goes, yeah, it's a good idea. Let's get out of here. How can you argue with this?
You know, you're right. I want to go to that place you said.
Yeah.
God, so messed
Well,
up.
I'm proud of him for going.
Yeah,
with them.
no,
And,
that's
like,
you're a model crazy person.
I mean, by the way, we don't even know how crazy he is. He might be a little crazy. He might be a lot of crazy.
But actually, all the things he said might be true.
His phone might actually
mean-
be watching. I mean, your phone does watch you.
If he says the word gang stalking, then we got some concerns. that's like the tell, right? But
Well, I mean, he was very specific. His ex-girlfriend's ex-husband, and those are guys, you know, from all of the ex-girlfriend's ex-husbands I've met, they're mean.
yeah,
Bad dudes. Corn
Might
pop.
take at least a dagger to take one of those boys. Though.
so like I don't dislike this gentleman because he did what needed to be done for himself.
He was a docile weird person.
Yeah.
That's you know what those do when they're not teaching children things. They add flavor to a community. We've got a lot here in Orlando. We've got a bunch of like very insane homeless people that like occupy specific intersections.
Oh,
And they're great. They're friendly. You know, there's nothing wrong with them. They're definitely, you know, not quite right.
I mean,
but,
they're homeless. There's problems there. That goes back to that sort of like conservatorship thing that we don't know where the line of is anymore.
Right.
Where it's just like, I feel like if we got them help for 2 years straight, they'd probably go, "Why'd you leave me out there for 10 years?"
I don't know. I've known. So my point being, a docile and friendly weirdo adds flavor to a community. And you know what
Especially
else
if he has a gun.
especially with a gun, adds flavor and a little bit of chance.
Yeah.
But you know what else adds flavor? Patriot Patch Company. Patriot Patch Co. is the longest time sponsor of our show, and you can join the Patch of the Month Club. Did you know that we have our own special promotional code just for you? It's TWIG10, TWIG10. You can purchase the Patch of the Month. You can also join the club. Currently, it is the January exclusive Become Abominable. It is a snow person. I am not going to assume the gender. With a, we determined what, it's a Carl Gustav rocket. And a surprised AR-15 style firearm. I have been really using
that's the Armalite AR-15
the
rifle.
Armalite Aryan rifle 15 edition
1.5.
for whites. They sent me this AK cleaning mat / mouse pad, and I'll say, if you're using this as a mouse pad and you're not a drafter, you're a fucking weirdo. But wait, they have the blems are only $16.99. But yeah, so check out patriotpatch.co and use promotional code TWIG10
If
to
you're using it
support
as
the
a
show.
cleaning mat, then you might as well get the blem.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna get nasty.
Yep.
Actually,
Well, anyway.
actually, using it as a mount pad might get nastier faster sometimes.
Sometimes, especially those open foam ones. I don't know. Buy it. Check it out. See what you think. That's it for today, guys. Today went long, but I think it's because we hit a lot of good stuff to talk to.
Alex.
There's a lot going on.
Alex.
Yeah, big week. Yeah,
I mean,
Alex Baldwin.
Well, I mean, it wasn't just this week, but it just 2 weeks, 3 weeks ago,
Yeah.
where we had Illinois and the brace like 2 days apart.
It
Right.
was kind of gross.
Everything's just tearing itself in opposite directions.
Yay.
I mean, we're both accelerationists. Whatever. I don't care.
Yeah. Look, the important message of today is to hug your homies.
Yeah.
Give him a sloppy kiss.
Yeah. Hug them tight. Kiss them
kiss
good.
your homies on the mouth.
Make sure you got their phone number or whatever. Figure out a way to talk to them without phones. Anyway. See you next time.
What are you trying to say?